Imagine waking up on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Nothing special. The alarm goes off, your brain is still foggy, and you grab your phone like it's part of the routine. You open your bank or brokerage app with your first sip of coffee, not expecting anything, just a quick glance. And then you see it. Yesterday, while you were at work putting in your hours, your portfolio made $412. You blink, you refresh, you assume it's a glitch, but it's real. Then you do the uncomfortable math. After taxes, your take-home pay from that same day of work was around $320. Your money made more than you did. And for a second, everything feels slightly off. Not in a scary way, in a revealing way. Because this isn't a one-time lucky day. It's not a meme, it's not crypto magic. It's a pattern that starts quietly, then repeats, then grows until you can't ignore it. Your returns begin to outpace your wages. Not enough to live on yet, but enough to change how you see your life. Enough to make you think, wait, if my money can do this while I sleep, what happens if I keep doing the right things for long enough?
That moment has a name. It's called the crossover point. And what keeps me up at night is how few people even know this moment exists. Most people will work for 40 years, trade time for money until they're exhausted, and then hope that Social Security and whatever they manage to save will be enough to survive.
They never learn the rules of the game they're playing. But there's another path. Not a fantasy, not a mindset hack, a mathematical path. My name is Ted, and I spend way too much time thinking about the invisible milestones that separate working forever from work is optional. If you feel like you're running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up, or you want freedom but you're tired of vague financial advice, subscribe and stick around. Today, we're not talking about budgeting apps or saving $5 on a latte. We're talking about a specific date on your calendar, a date you can calculate, when your money starts working harder than you do.
So take a breath. This is simpler than it sounds, and I'll walk you through it. Clearly, slowly, with real numbers. If this helps you, hit like so more people see it today. So take a breath. This is simpler than it sounds, and I'll walk you through it. Clearly, slowly, with real numbers. If this helps you, hit like so more people see it today.
Most people believe their financial life is controlled by one thing: income. Earn more, get promoted, find a better job, and everything will eventually fall into place. But income is not the system. It's just one input.
Your financial reality is actually controlled by two lines that move through time, whether you pay attention to them or not. The first line is your expenses. This is what it costs you to live the life you're currently living. Rent or mortgage, food, transportation, insurance, subscriptions, habits you barely think about anymore. Money leaving your account quietly month after month. For most people, this line feels permanent, fixed, almost untouchable. But it isn't. It rises slowly over time. Inflation nudges it upward, lifestyle creep pushes it further, new responsibilities lock it in. And because it happens gradually, people rarely question it. They adapt instead. This is the money your money generates for you. Dividends, interest, appreciation, assets working quietly in the background while you're busy living your life. For almost everyone at the beginning, this line is flat. Maybe you have a savings account earning a few dollars a month. Maybe a small investment that goes up and down but doesn't feel meaningful, so you ignore it. That's the mistake.
At first, it feels boring, slow, almost pointless. Then it starts to surprise you. Then, if you stay consistent long enough, it begins to accelerate. Not because you're smarter, not because you found a secret, but because time is doing the heavy lifting. And the crossover point is the exact moment when these two lines intersect. When the income generated by your assets becomes enough to cover what it costs you to live, that's when the rules change. Work stops being a requirement and becomes a choice.
My name is Ted, and the reason most people never reach this point is simple. They only track one line. They watch their balance like a scoreboard, but they never measure the gap. And if you don't measure the gap, you can't close it on purpose.
Once you can see both lines clearly, the problem stops feeling emotional and starts becoming mechanical. You either lower the expense line, raise the investment line, or do both. That's the entire game, and once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Now let's take this out of the abstract, because this idea only becomes powerful when you attach numbers to it.
Until then, it feels inspirational. Once you do the math, it becomes inevitable.
Start with something simple. What does your life actually cost? Not what you hope it costs, not what it used to cost, what it really costs right now.
Let's say your monthly expenses are $4,000. That includes housing, food, transportation, insurance, and the lifestyle you've built over time. $4,000 a month is $48,000 a year. If you wanted your investments to cover that amount indefinitely, you wouldn't need $48,000 invested. You'd need a portfolio large enough that you could safely withdraw a small percentage each year without running out of money.
A commonly used guideline for this is 4%. So the math looks like this.
48,000 divided by 4% gives you $1.2 million. That number is your crossover point, and this is usually where people shut down. 1.2 million sounds overwhelming, unrealistic, so far away that it feels pointless to even think about. But that reaction comes from emotion, not math.
Because the real question isn't whether you can reach that number tomorrow. The real question is how long it takes if you do the right things consistently.
Imagine you're 30 years old and you invest $500 a month. Not aggressively, just consistently. Assume a long-term average return of around 8%. In the early years, progress feels slow, almost invisible. Your contributions matter more than your returns, and that can feel discouraging. But something changes as time passes. The portfolio starts to grow not just because you're adding money, but because the money already there is working.
Returns begin to compound on top of previous returns. And this is where patience turns into leverage. Here's the part most people miss. The crossover point is not fixed.
It's a moving target controlled by two variables, how much you invest and how much it costs you to live. Lower your expenses and the number drops. Increase your investments and the timeline shrinks.
Small changes don't just save money, they buy time, years of it.
This isn't about extreme sacrifice or cutting everything that brings you joy. It's about understanding which decisions move the math in your favor. Once you see that, money stops feeling like something you're chasing. It starts feeling like something you're directing. And that shift is where real control begins. I want to leave you with a way of thinking that permanently changes how you see money. Every financial decision you make has two costs.
The first cost is obvious. It's the money you spend today. The second cost is invisible. It's the amount of time you push your crossover point further into the future. When you buy something, you're not just spending dollars. You're spending future freedom.
That doesn't mean you should never enjoy your money. That idea is unrealistic and unnecessary. What it means is that every purchase is a trade. When you choose something today, you're choosing how long you'll need to keep working tomorrow.
Most people never think in these terms. They evaluate purchases emotionally, not structurally. Can I afford this right now? Instead of, what does this do to my timeline? And because of that, the years slip by quietly. They earn, they spend, they repeat. Until one day they realize they've been working for decades and still don't feel secure.
Not because they didn't make enough money, but because nearly every dollar that came in went right back out. The crossover point offers a different way to play the game. Not an easy way, not a fast way, but a clear one. Save consistently, invest patiently, reduce expenses intelligently. Then give the system time to work. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. You don't need to optimize every decision. You need to make more decisions that move you closer instead of further away. Once you understand the crossover point, anxiety starts to fade. Not because life becomes risk-free, but because the future becomes measurable. You're no longer guessing. You're no longer hoping. You're building toward a number. And one day, often sooner than people expect, the lines cross. You check your accounts on an ordinary morning,
and realize something subtle but powerful. Your money is now covering your life. Work becomes optional. Choices expand. Pressure eases. That moment doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly. But once it happens, everything feels different.
My name is Ted, and if this way of thinking helped you see money more clearly, stay around. This channel is about understanding the rules of the system we're all inside, so you can make decisions with intention instead of stress.
Because when you understand the math, you stop reacting. You start designing your life.